He's always there. It's not surprising.
We can give a nice warm welcome to Betty Cohen and Fogelman.
I too want to thank all of you for coming, and this is a real special time for Betty and I because we've never done this before together. We've spoken individually, but this is our premiere as far as doing this together, so we're going to wing it a little bit because we haven't really rehearsed this. We're just going to take our story and try to intertwine it, which it does anyway, very much, and as you'll hear in a few minutes. As I was introduced, my name is Louis Fogelman. My name in Holland, this is where we're from. We're from in the Netherlands, Holland, which is right up here. Small little country just above Belgium, next to Germany. I was born in Hilversum, Holland, which is about 25 minutes outside of Amsterdam. Hilversum is really known for being the media capital of Holland. That's where all the radio stations and TV stations are at. And I was born June 21st, 1941. And I think that the best way to just start is to have Aunt Betty start with her story, and then I kind of will dovetail into it as I appear.
Well, I'm Betty, and I was born in Amsterdam, but as a young child, I was about 3-4 years old when we moved to Hilversum, because that was, my whole family lived there. We had a family business, lots of aunts and uncles, lots of cousins, grandparents, and I had my parents, my father, my mother, my 2 brothers. This was his father. That was his mama. And my older brother was married to a non-Jewish lady, but he was very involved in the resistance in the 30s already. And when the war broke out we had a war for 5 days, but we lost.
May in 1940.
Yeah, the Germans came in, and he had to go into hiding right away and do what he does for being in the resistance. And then he had a son. That was Louis when he was little. But this was my older brother's son, also a Louis. And that was the last time in 1940 he saw his son, because he was caught doing what he did in 43. So he never saw his child again. And that was his mama. She was born in Cologne, and during when it got, oh, there he is.
Jerry, come here.
He may have sexy teeth.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Jerry, this is Aunt Betty's son.
That's my son.
And Pamela, my girlfriend.
Pamela. So honored that everybody came and listened to us. Anyway, anywho, she was born in Cologne, Germany, and she had a sister, Elsie. Elsie also, their parents had sent Elsie already to
France. And then
no, she was sent to Paris, also waiting for a visa to go to the United States. And that came in 38, and she went to New York, went to work there, got a job, found a husband, and they settled in Atlanta, Georgia. And Herta came to Holland in 39, also waiting for a visa, but the war broke out. It was too late for her, so she was stuck. And she met my brother at a party, that's what made, and they got married, and she kept saying, oh, I want to go to my sister if we make it, was war, and the Germans were there. She says, but I don't want any babies right now, no babies, because we're going to the United States. But they were married in August,
41.
in 41, and 10 months later they had a little baby.
And they were born, they were August of 1940 they were married.
They got married in
Yeah,
August.
1940.
That's right, yeah. And I,
And when were you born again?
she loved it. I was friends with my cousin Greta. My cousin Greta and I, we did everything together. We had a wonderful family, very warm, loving family. Lots of parties, lots of doing, and Greta and I did everything. Went to the gym, we went to the pool, we water polo in the pool, a lot of exercise, and we did everything together. We loved that we had tap dancing lessons also. 5 days before the war, there was a holiday, and we used to love to go dancing. Amsterdam was a big city, big hotels, who made for the teenagers, we had dances. No hip-hop. No hip-hop, it was really formal dancing. And they imported the American bands, dance band. I don't know if you ever heard of them. It's Tommy Dorsey, Stan Kenton, the Mills Brothers, and they used to come to the hotels, and we used to go on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. We used to go there, and we used to have a tea dansant. They served tea for the teenagers. We couldn't drink, of course. And we used to love that. And at one of those places, I met my future husband. But 5 days later, the war broke out, and I lost contact, but he did find me back anyway. Lucky for him. Anyway, it was very good. But of course, it was not so nice. We lived in Hilversum. We had the baby already, and a lot of people were going, tried to go in hiding, but a lot of people also, the Swiss borders were open, and anybody who had an opportunity to go to Switzerland at that time, there were passeurs who would take you over from the different countries, from Holland to Belgium, from Belgium to France, and then they come to Switzerland. And a lot of people did that, and my dad, we came in Hilversum, and of course the Gestapo was there and the Nazis were there. But in Hilversum they left us a kind of alone. They were there with their dogs and the guns and whatever, but they left us alone. In the middle of 1940, we had to wear our yellow stars, of course. I was working, and then it started, of course. I was working in a department store, and all Jewish personnel was fired. Holland is a bicycle place. I don't know if anybody has been in Holland, saw the bicycles. It was just thousands and thousands of bicycles, and they took no Jewish people needed a bike. Took all the bicycles away from the Jews. Little children didn't need an education, Jewish children. No more schooling for the Jewish people, for the Jewish children. Nobody could go to school, and it was pretty scary already. No more gym, no more pool, we couldn't go, no theaters, all over but signs from no Jews allowed. And it was pretty scary, of course. In Amsterdam, in Hilversum, like I said, they did leave us alone. Amsterdam was a different story. There was a lot of Jewish people lived in Amsterdam, and there was one area in Amsterdam where they were free, everybody was free, but a lot of people, it was not a ghetto at all. Just a free place where a lot of Jewish people lived, had their big businesses, whatever it was. But it was easy for the Gestapo and the Nazis to go because everybody who lived there was Jewish. And that's when it started. Picking up the Jews, put them on the train, and send them to the death camp. All they wanted was get rid of the Jews. And it was just pretty scary to be in Amsterdam. Now, my fiancé, I should say, we became engaged in September. My brother got married in August, and we became engaged in September. Jews couldn't get married anymore either, shouldn't be married. So, and then, of course, a lot of people, like I said, went into hiding. And my dad said, well, we have to make arrangements, we have to go into hiding. Now, my future husband, Al, I'll say, my name used to be in Holland, Beppie, and my fiancé's name was Appie. Well, when we finally landed in the United States, they said, what kind of names are those? We make you Betty, and he's Al. And Al had a brother and a sister, Sherry, and a sister Elizabeth, and his parents. And they were also trying to go into hiding, and my dad found us a hiding place. He says, for you I have a hiding place. They were going hiding also, but I found you a hiding place. And my brother and the baby lived also in Amsterdam. He says, and we'll send them to Switzerland. And if we hear that they are safe, then we'll make other plans for you. In the meantime, you go to Hilversum, go into hiding. He found a nice man who had a little cabin in an alley. Was in an alley, but 3 little cabins, and he owned one of them. And he says, and you go there with Al and Jerry, go into hiding. And then when we hear that East, and the baby was only 1 year old, is safe, then we'll make plans for you. Well, we were in hiding, and they were picked up, East and Herta, his mom, and the baby, and they were picked up by the passeur to go to Switzerland. When they came to the railroad station, they put them in the theater, but they had a holding. They put all the people who were caught on the street or at the homes or wherever, they put them in the theater in Amsterdam, like a holding place.
1 second.
Let's
try. At the railroad station, the surfer.
I'm just across the street from.
No, I know. Wait a second. At the railroad station, when we were trying to get to Switzerland, my parents and myself, the guide turned us over to the Gestapo. He didn't. He took our money and so forth, and he turned us over to the Gestapo, and that's how we got captured.
There is my picture.
From where?
When we came to the theater, there they put it, when the people, the mothers and children came to the station, to the theater, they across the street from the theater was a big brick building, and that was set up like a nursery for the children. When the parents came by the theater, they took the babies away, put them in the nursery. They got it back when the time came for them on the transport to go to Auschwitz.
Let me talk about this a little bit,
Okay.
okay?
I'll give the word.
Anyway, when we got to the theater, there was a lot of.
That's silly.
I
Oh,
have it.
you have it too.
There was a lot of commotion going on. There was a lot of people, a lot of children. They were making a tremendous amount of noise. It's the Hollandish Schaumsburg Theater. It's a Jewish theater, live theater that was going on in those days, which the Germans took over and used as a deep holding facility. Anyway, with all the noise and everything going on, they couldn't handle the children being there, so the creche, the nursery across the street, they took all the children and put them into the nursery. And there was a couple of people there that worked there and took care of the babies and some of the older children. Aunt Betty never knew, we weren't quite sure, Aunt Betty wasn't quite sure how they knew where to take me and how I got
I think
there.
Martha must have put a note on you.
Yeah, she thought that put a note on me, but that didn't really make a lot of sense. And it was in June of 2014, Aunt Betty got this magazine. This is a magazine that comes to the survivors in Holland and to the resistance fighters. And on the cover of the magazine was Simi and Harry Cohen. And Simi was 19 at the time, and she was the nurse, or the acting nurse that took care of the children 0 to 4 years old. So she was one of the people that took care of me. And so when Betty got this and read the story about Simi, then she got all excited and she called me on the phone and says, "I discovered how you got saved and who saved you." And so it was quite monumental. And so she came over real quick and showed me the magazine, and of course I read the story, and I was just thrilled to learn about Simi and her husband. And this was 2014, and so I wrote the author of the story, and I got the information of Simi and where they live now. They were living in Amsterdam with her husband, and I called her up and told her who I was and so forth. It was great conversation, and then we made plans for me and my wife Anna to go over to Holland and to meet her and her husband. And so in 2015, I think it was about 2015, we went and we met her. In the meantime, Simi was doing, was recognized by a lot of people, and during that time she was being interviewed, and she mentioned that I and my wife was coming over to see her, being one of the survivors. And there's a TV show in Holland called Memories that does different stories about Dutch people and how they reconnected with each other and so forth. They wanted to do a show about Simi and reconnecting with me for the first time. So when I got to meet Simi and her husband, it was at a park right down the street from the theater, and then they filmed the whole thing and showed it on TV about a month or two later during the Remembrance Day in Holland, which is I think on May 4th, and so we met at the park and hugged and so forth, and then we went over to her apartment and I met her daughter, and we had a nice lunch and so forth, and just unbelievable kind of person that they both were, and especially Simi.
She was only 16 when she started.
Well, she started, but
When she started working.
when we.
But she's still alive.
Yeah.
No, she just passed away a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately, at the age of 94. And her husband is still alive. And Harry, during the war, was a courier for the Jewish committee, and he would go back and forth between the creche and the Jewish committee with different information, and I'm not exactly sure, but he was like a courier, and that's how Simi and him met and fell in love. And in fact, the Germans, they closed the creche in 1943. They didn't need it anymore because most of the Jews had already been taken away. And then so Simi and Harry had to go into hiding. And but they weren't married yet. And of course, like Aunt Betty said, Jews weren't allowed to get married. And but they couldn't go into hiding, they felt, not being married. And so they made arrangements to go to this park where we met right down the street from the creche and the theater, and they got married right there in the park, the two of them. And then they went into hiding, and they lived under the floorboards of this house for about a year and a half, and survived. And Simi, in her time that she was there, saved over 600 Jewish children. And what they would do, what she would do, because the Germans kept strict count of how many people were there and how many people were leaving, and so Simi had the ability and the right to go across the street between the theater and the creche, and so she would go to the theater and she would talk to the parents of the children and say, if we can save your child, I can place them in a home and hide them, and we can take care of them. Most of the parents said no, we're young, we're strong.
Keep my own child.
Yeah, well, we're gonna keep, and said no to Simi. My parents obviously said it was, please do so. And the way that what she would do is she would take a doll and wrap it in blankets, take it across the street to the parents that were ready to be deported.
And say the baby is asleep.
Right.
If they ask, so that's how they saved him.
And
some other children.
And a lot of other children. And then, like Aunt Betty said, we in Hilversum, the family had a business, and the business was we were the sanitation business, plumbing supplies, bathtubs, and things like that. And my dad worked there, and one of the customers was Johann Lahm, who was a plumber, and he frequented the business to get his supplies and so forth. And him and my father became friends, and they must have.
My father got in contact with them.
Yeah, but they made but while they, while doing business and so forth, and of course the Germans had started coming in and say, my dad and Johann, they made an arrangement that if anything would happen, that they would take care of me. So when Simi got me and got me to the resistance, she was told where to take me, and they took me to Johann Lahm, and they became
and she said, oh, I just gave birth to a baby, because he was only 1 year old at that time. And she, the wife, she right away said, oh, bring him to me, because I just gave birth. She told everybody that she just had a new baby, and that's how he's here.
This is a small picture, unfortunately, but this is Johann and his wife and me in the middle when I went back to visit them in Holland in about 1964, I think it was.
But were they Jewish?
No, they were a Catholic family. Very.
Not sure, they were Catholic.
Yeah, that's how I was. How they could.
You went back. That was when we went back that one time.
Yeah, right. The first time we went back, and they had two other children at the time that I came to live with them. They had a son, Andre. He was the oldest, and this is me here in the middle. And then they had a daughter named Betty also. And then after the war, they had 4 more children. Andre and I became quite close. In fact, he kept calling me I was his little brother. And and it's nice. I became close with the whole family actually, and some of the children's children. I talk to them once in a while, mostly on Facebook, and they call me Uncle Lewis. So it's really, I mean, you know, they were for 2.5 years. They were my family and treated me such and made sure that I survived. And it wasn't easy for them. I mean, after a while, people kept questioning, you know, who I was and so forth. I went to live with the grandmother of Mrs. Lom, and then even after a while, I went to live with Mrs. Lom's sister. And you know, God forbid that they were caught, because the Germans would have taken the whole family, children and all, and murdered all of them. And they were always so worried. And one of the things was that, like I said, they were a Catholic family, and Andre, being the oldest, he went to Catholic school, and every once in a while I would go with Mrs. Lom and go pick him up at Catholic school. And she was always worried that if I needed to go to the bathroom, that she couldn't let a nun take me to the bathroom, because if a nun took me to the bathroom, they would see that I was circumcised and know that I was Jewish. So that's the kind of atmosphere that they had to live under. So you know, so what they did, you know, saving me was you know, well, they were righteous people, to say the least. And in fact, I was honored to nominate them to be recognized by Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial in Israel, that as righteous among the nations. And we had a ceremony at The Hague in Holland in 2002. Unfortunately, they were no longer alive, but the rest of their family was there, and it was a beautiful ceremony. And their name is under the country of the Netherlands as among the righteous.
Okay. That's enough out of you. Well, my parents came. They were in hiding, and down the street was also a family who was caught, and the owners of the house was killed also. So where my parents were, they got scared, and they told them, I'm sorry, you have to leave because so-and-so happened down the street, and we get scared, you have to find yourself another hiding place. Well, my dad knew where we were in hiding, so there was a knock on the door, there were my parents. Then my grandmother heard that my mother found her hiding place. She wanted to go to my mother. And my aunt needed a hiding place, and then she came. And of course, we were there already with my in-laws wanted to go into hiding. And you know, to go in hiding, you need money, you need whatever, gold, silver, just to survive the Holocaust. And at the last moment, and that they had put that in a little suitcase, and Elizabeth's husband carried the suitcase with all their, whatever they had to survive. And at the last moment he says, oh, I forgot something at home. I have to go, it's important, I need it. Stupid thing, but he did. Wait, he said, we'll go as soon as I come back, we go to our hiding place. Of course, he was caught with everything in the little suitcase, and they couldn't go into hiding. And her husband was sent to the death camps right away, was killed. And my sister-in-law, the man who took care of us, his name was Dirk. When we were in hiding, he heard what happened, he went to Amsterdam, picked up Elizabeth, and brought her also to us. So, make a long story short, we were in the hiding. Our family was 8 people. But Dirk was also in the resistance, trying to find places for people. And there he came with an old man with 2 daughters, and he said, don't worry, I'll find them another place. The other place never came. Then he brought the grandchildren from the old man, same story. Then he got another 2 people, and another 2 people. Well, to make a long story short, in that little place we had, we ended up with 17 people. And there was just the 2 rooms and an attic. So in the attic, the 4 of us slept, Elizabeth, Jerry, Al, and I. And on the other side of the ladder was my aunt with the 2 little boys. Downstairs we had a one small bedroom. My parents with my grandmother slept in there, plus another couple. In the living room we had a closet. Then you opened the door. I had never heard they said the farmers have it. It's a closet, it's a bedroom. In the closet was just a big double bed. The 2 old ladies slept in there. For the rest we had no more room. People slept on the floor. And it was strange people. Everybody in stress. You can imagine. 17 people together. Everybody has their own craziness. A lot of fighting went on. But we had neighbors, we had the whisper also. We didn't talk normal. We all, we talked to each other. Can you imagine 17 people fighting and whispering? It was a crazy situation. It was terrible, but I survived that too. So that was it. And then
That was
that was in the hiding. Everybody, there was nothing for us to do. My dad and Al started some board games. My brother-in-law Jerry was good in drawing, and he used to draw the surroundings very well. And then we only had gaslight because it was 1942. We were in hiding for 2 years, from 42 to 44, and then we were caught finally. And that was it. That was me, my mother, that was me, that was Al, and the 2 little boys, and people trying to play a board game, but they most of the time everybody stayed in bed because there was.
This was the attic,
That
right?
was the attic. Yeah, we slept on one side. It was, yeah, but we were safe. We felt safe anyway. Until one day, of course, there was a knock, what did I say, a knock on the door. They broke the door down and there was the Gestapo. Now, my parents weren't there. My parents knew about losing the 2 boys, of course, and it was devastating. My mom was in bed most of the time, and my dad was trying to talk to her, talk to all of us a little bit, psychology. We should be strong, we should be nice, but that didn't work too much anyway. My mom was always crying about the boys. And then one day my dad came to me and he said, you know, you should spend a little, where we are going. Because we were caught, we were put into Westerbork, a camp, and then we were put in a cattle car, everybody on our way to Ravensbrück. And was it Ravensbrück? Yeah, the first camp.
Yeah.
I forgot. I get all mixed up too with all the camps. Anyway,
And Aunt Betty's gonna be 98 in 2 weeks.
Anyway, so that I'm allowed to forget a little bit. But I get back to the story.
You went to Westerbork first. You went to Westerbork.
Well, from Westerberg we went in the cattle car
To Birkenau, Auschwitz.
to, not Auschwitz yet,
Birkenau.
Birkenau.
To Birkenau.
To Birkenau, that's right. And Birkenau we came, and in the cattle car, my dad came to me, spent a little time with your mom, because where we're going, I don't think we'll ever see each other again. So that was a lot of crying, a lot of. Anyway, we came to Birkenau, and the car stopped. There was a little window in the cattle car, And Al went up and looked out, and he saw all the prisoners standing there, also to catch us to get off the train. But he thought he recognized some of the guys from his area. He tried, but there was a guard outside, so there was. But one man went by the car and kept saying, "Give the children to old people. All babies or children in there to old people." Lot of commotion in the car. Most of the people said, "No, no, no, I want to take care of my own child." But my mom ended up with 2 children on the hand when the doors opened. We had to get out of the cattle car. There was a ramp, and my dad had organized some backpacks for us with survival stuff in it. The Jewish community did that already when we were still home. And, well, of course, you have to get rid of everything. You stepped out the car, you drop everything what you have. You have to walk down the ramp. To the end, there was a door, there was a Gestapo standing, and there was a Nazi with him standing, and they were separating as thousands of people, but we didn't have the only cattle car. There were roads and lots of cattle cars. And everybody had to get out, separate the store, separate the people. I talked too much.
Big, why don't you,
Anyway,
you can, just by
anyway, they started separating us as we walked down, able-bodied to the right, mothers with children to the left, old people to the left, people who couldn't walk so good, they shot them already and threw them to the left. And there we were walking, and it was absolutely very scary because we didn't know where we were going. And then we saw the people to the left going one side, and we found out that they went, hello there,
Sorry, I thought you said
another
there were
lady
4.
who speaks, survivor. And and we heard that the people who went to the left, they went to the gas chamber. And that was the last I saw of my family, my parents and my grandma and my in-laws, everybody. They went to the left and we went there. I was with Elizabeth, my sister-in-law, of course. And Al was with his brother Jerry, go to the men's lager. I was with Elizabeth. We came to a door, and finally they came in there. We had to take a shower. Take a shower, the women. Oh, Harry is there too.
Keep going, Aunt Betty.
Also survivor, also a speaker. Same age as Jerry. I say,
Louis.
yeah.
I don't know this lady.
Anyway, I'm so honored for everybody to be here, I'm telling you. Anyway, I forgot where I was.
You were saying that there was a door, and you went through a door, you had to take a,
You have to take a shower. Now we understand, Elizabeth and I were together, we held on to each other, because the showers, we knew that the gas chambers were showers also. So we said, that's us, that's us. But lo and behold, it was water coming out. So we got took a shower, we got a lousy dress to wear, bad shoes to wear, and that's where we lost our identity. That's where we got no more name, we just got a number. And that's when they gave us the first number. Then we went to our barracks, which they called blocks and a number, block so and so. And when we walked in, there were all bunk beds, straw mattresses, and we looked out, and Elizabeth and I, we went to the bottom bunk. There were 3 highs, the bunks. We went to the bottom, and there were 6 women in there already. So we had to crawl in there, also from Holland. It was the same transport, but we came together, 8 of us in that hole. And then you had to go to the bathroom, you had to go outside, there were buckets outside. So I had to go to the bathroom, and as I walked outside, I was in shock. Saw the buckets, but there was a brick building standing there, and fire up to the sky. Those were the crematoriums. And the guard came, there was a guard also standing there. And I was just standing there and looking, and I didn't know what was going to happen, of course. And I looked there, and then he says, "Did you come today?" As much as I could understand him. I said, yeah. He says, "Well, you say goodbye to your family, because that's where they're going now." So, of course, crying. I went inside, I said blah, blah, blah to the girls. We came outside, and the Jewish people have a prayer. So we sat there and we said their Shema and whatever. And that was the end of our family, that they were all gassed and get rid of. So we went back, and there was not much to do in that camp. We came, and there was what they called, our camp, they called a quarantine kind of. And there was next to us, there were gates on the side. Next door there was another camp, and it was a woman's, also women in there. And they had to go to work in the morning. We didn't go to work, and they had to come down, walk past us as we being counted in the morning, and they go out that side, and by that gate there was an orchestra playing. They had, there was always people who played, and they had started an orchestra, and that they had to march down while we were standing there, watching down by the music, go out and go to work. After they left, we were standing there being counted, and there was a selection. Get rid of the Jews, I told you. So they stayed, and they picked just at random bodies, till they had about 50, 80 people, and they were sent to the gas chambers. And that went on every day. Every day we got more people in also, because more people were caught, and they had to come to Birkenau at that time. I had gotten a very bad sore on my leg, and the block eldest, the guard was there, and she recognized that I limped, I guess. I don't really remember how it happened. But she put me, Elizabeth and I, we were together, but she put me into another block. And I thought I had to say goodbye to Elizabeth, because I didn't know if I would survive. They put me in that block, but there were other people in there. And also with little ailment, very little, maybe something. But we found out later that it was a holding block. Birkenau, Auschwitz is one camp, half an hour away. And they put me in that block like that was a holding block. Auschwitz was a manslager, only men. But there was one block in there which was called Block 10, and that they have women in there. They were experiments. They had 3 doctors. You know, all heard about Dr. Mengele, the famous Dr. Mengele, Dr. Klobark, and I always forget the third one. But it's the 3 German doctors who did the surgery on the women. By the time I came in Birkenau, those 3 doctors had bought Block 10 from the Germans and started their own hospital. There it says Arbeit macht frei, Next to it is a big brick building, and they had transformed that into a hospital, makeshift hospital. But it was, at least, listen, we were so dirty and so, whatever, it was horrible. But we came to that block, and I was in Birkenau, Birkenau.
Right.
And those 3 doctors came, they needed more women to do surgery on. And they came and they asked for married women. I wasn't married at the time, but we were together in hiding for 2 years. And I got out anyway. I'm married, so with about 30, 40 other ladies. And then they sent us to Auschwitz. We came into Auschwitz. First of all, we were so dirty from the dirt floor, only dirt floor. And we lost already so much weight too. And they, we came to Auschwitz and they put us in that hospital, kind of. As we walked in, we were surprised. It looked so clean. It was really no dirt floors. And then they took us upstairs to a very large area, all bunk beds with straw mattresses. But they had sheets and pillowcases. It was kind of set up like a hospital. And that is where they put us. During the day, we were downstairs. During the day, we had to go into, I forgot to tell you. The second day when we came into Birkenau, they called our transport, just our transport back into the sauna, the bathroom. And they shaved our heads and gave us a second number. I don't know why we lost, I have no idea. They scratched out the first number and gave us a second number. And maybe, I have no idea why it happened, but that is what happened. And then they sent us back, and when we had to remember the numbers. The first number was 5288, and they scratched that out, and then they gave us a second number, which was A5252. In their language, it was Vedisham Dva, and we had to remember that, because when we were in our hospital, we had to go into the sewing room. They had sewing room. For during the day, we had to sew some scarves or hats for the soldiers. And then when your number was called, and then I heard 5252, Vedisham Dva, we had to go downstairs, and there was a nurse downstairs who had to prepare us for surgery. Don't you have to say anything? No, you tell me when to stop.
Yeah, well.
Okay. So we were there, and we, then when your number was called downstairs. I don't remember too much. It was a Dutch lady. She was maid or nurse, I don't know. But she had to prepare us. I don't remember much about that. But she took us to a room, and I remember when she opened the door that I saw a slab of shiny metal, which was the operating room, I guess.
Yes.
Must have been the operating table. The whole thing I don't remember.
It's okay.
But when I went out, we found out what was the operation: sterilization. We shouldn't get any more Jewish children being born. So they sterilized us all the women. Now I was still with those, Elizabeth I left in Birkenau, but I was still together with those other the 7 of us, the 6
Dutch
girls.
people.
And you know, when you're in such misery and we all went through the same, we became very close. We were like sisters, everybody was, we were just one. So we stayed as close together as we could. And there we were, and every day more counting, more. So it was, the Russians came closer, and we had to go on another walk. That way, it happened to be January 18, 1945. And I was in camp for 2 years. We were in Auschwitz for 2 years, from 42 to 44. It was 44, and we had to go on another walk, but by that time they called it the Death March. Now, Al was also in Auschwitz with his brother. He woke up one morning and his brother wasn't next to him. His brother was also very,
Depressed.
very, very sad all the time. And he went looking for him, and he found his brother by the electric fence. He had electrocuted himself. He couldn't take it, and he had killed himself. So he had lost his brother. Of course, I heard about that through the grapevine. I don't remember. But Elizabeth was left in Birkenau, and she also went on the Death March like we did from out of Birkenau. And we found out later that she was sick walking and she was shot. When we went walking also, and at the meadows on the side, there was just one road going, and there was meadows on the side, and they were covered with snow. It was, like I said, January. And there were all bodies in there. If you couldn't walk anymore, they just shot you, picked up the bodies, and threw them in the meadow. And there we had to walk, us, the 7 of us, trying, but you had to be careful, because if you couldn't walk anymore, or you went out of line, they shot you right away. It was just a very... At the end, we came to a barn. They put us in the barn. The next day, you had to go work again. And the same stories all the time. We always saw the white snow, but all kinds of bodies in there. And then one day, we came to another cattle car, a closed cattle car. And it was very crowded in the cattle car, and it was terrible. And it was a horrible situation in there. But it was people also dying. We all were starving. We lost so much weight. And then we came finally to Ravensbrück. Ravensbrück was also a very bad camp. And you can even Google it. And we came to Ravensbrück, and there it was, I still had my bad sore on my foot. And we were there, and there was also nothing in Ravensbrück. Overfull. Not supposed to go outside. There were too many people in there. The bunk beds were full, people sleeping on the floor. It was a horrible situation. And the head of the camp was a Nazi, and he had his wife with him. Now his wife was fascinated, as we found out, by tattoos. She has some one of her cronies looking for nice tattoos. And when they sent them to her, she had them skinned and made lampshades out of them. Now, if you Google Ravensbrück, you can find out that is how I found out. And also, not only lampshades, but she made also evening bags out of that. How she did that, I don't know. Anyway, we were there, and the Russians came closer all the time. There was not much to do for us there, and it was so stifling hot in there with too many bodies. not going outside, and it was my foot healed. My sore on my foot because of the heat probably it healed, and they gave me another pair of bad shoes. But anyway, but the Russians came closer again. The Russians, we had to go on another walk. We went on another walk again, and an open cattle car. It was the men and the boys, they tried to escape, tried to jump over the edge from the open cattle car, but they had no chance because we heard them shooting. As soon as they tried to get over, the Germans shot them right away. It was fair. Then we came to another camp. Finally, okay, a big brick building. And finally we thought, well, we're gonna rest maybe. Well, they opened the door. It was an open, nothing, absolutely, just dirt floors, nothing in that building. And there we had, find your place on the floor, that was it. There was nothing to do. But by that time, it was already April of 45. And outside there were meadows. And it looked pretty good. During the day, there was nothing for us to do. They gave us a broom, a makeshift broom. We had to do the dirt floors a little. But that was it. But what did we do? We were still, us 7 girls clinging together, the 7 of us. And during the day, there was nothing to do. We went into the meadow. Grass growing in the meadow. No blade grass. It was pretty grass. And we were so starving, we didn't get any food or drink. And there we started eating the grass because we were starving. In fact, at night sometimes we used to get a little soupa, they called it, but it was dirt and nails in there, but it was a little warm. So we did save of some of the grass and made it like a vegetable soup for us. Also, we sat in the meadows, nothing to do, thousands of people, and that's why you talk about what my mother used to eat and what my mother used to make. Just absolutely sickening, if you come to think of it. Because there we were starving and we were eating in our minds what we used to have. It was just terrible. The Russians came closer again, and we had to go and move again. There we went moving again, and there we came to meadows. They put us in the meadows. They shot you if you moved wrong. They have sent the dogs after you, and it was moved again to further down. We saw some houses far away. We thought it was another camp, and one morning we woke up in the meadow and there was nobody around. We looked, the soldiers were not there, nobody to tell us what to do. So what are we going to do? We looked at each other. You mean we are liberated? Well, maybe. We start hugging each other, crying. We were liberated, but where and who? What are we going to do now? But we saw those houses, we went over there. And as we came there, there were farmers. So that when we were there, everybody was moving, but we were still our 7 girls. We didn't let go of each other. And we came to the one farmer, and he looked at us, and he threw us in the barn. We were so dirty and skinny. When the liberation came, I was 65 pounds. But we were there, they put us in the barn, and one of our 7 girls was pretty sick girl. She had shrunk too, she was so little. Well, anyway, he put us in the barn. I don't remember if he fed us, maybe I don't know. But then we woke up, we were exhausted, of course. We woke up, this rumbling outside, and we went outside and looking, and there were the Russians, the tanks and the foot soldiers, and we were standing there and they were waving to us, and Well, we were standing there, oh my God, they come to liberate us. So we were throwing them kisses, and it was just amazing. And there came one of the food soldiers, came to us. He went to the farmer, threw the farmer and his family in the barn, and put us inside the farm. Well, there we were inside, and we could clean up a little bit, but he said we could take any room we want. We saw a room with a big bed. To me, it was like a king-size bed, and a crib in that room. So we wanted that room, and the girl who was so sick, she also had lost a little bit. We put her in the crib, and then the guy put us around to look somewhere we could take other rooms. No, we want to stay together. He took us to the kitchen. There we came in the kitchen, and he was talking blah, 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 whatever. We didn't understand him much, but he was showing us. Cuckoo-cuckoo! He was gonna kill a chicken. And then he took us to the kitchen, and then he opened the door. There was a door there. He opened the door, and it was a pantry. It's unbelievable. I had never seen a pantry in my life. Rows and rows of food, glasses, 3 high, and we were starving. So you can imagine, we didn't even look at him. We wanted to go in there and wanted to eat, which I don't even remember if we heated it up or whatever. But boy, did we all get sick. We got so sick. But we got rid of it. We went to bed. In that room, of course, we went up, the 6 of us in one bed, the 7th was in the crib. And we, the morning, it was, couldn't wait to go back to that room, to eat some more. But now we were free. Why can't we go home? Why can't they send us home now? Well, we were in Germany at that time already. And he said, well, there's, we were liberated by the
Russians.
Russians. Some people, some of the group was liberated by the English, by the Americans, because they had come in Germany, of course. So, so they took us, he said, we can go on the truck, and they'll take us. They took us to the English. There we could finally clean up a little bit. They threw the German people out of the house, put us in the house. We just want to stay together, the 7 of us. And during the day we could go with the soldiers to their, whatever they have, I don't remember too good. And then for a couple of days, and then we came to the Americans. And then we came to the Canadians. Now the Canadians had liberated Holland. We were home. Oh my goodness, of course they didn't expect us. They threw us in a school, and there was no food. Holland had the biggest starvation as of everything, because the Germans had taken all the food away in Holland. And we came, and there was such a starvation. Lots and thousands of people had died of starvation. We came to there and in the school, and of course people from that town where we were heard there was a transport from Auschwitz, and they came looking if there was somebody maybe they knew, and one couple came to me, and he said, where you live and what is your name and blah, blah, blah. I said, I want to go home. I live in Hilversum. He says, Hilversum? That's where my cousin lives. He says, and his name is Solly de Leeuw. I said, well, Solly de Leeuw is my cousin because he had married my girl cousin. And I said, they are in Switzerland with their little boy. Oh my God, they said, your family. Come home with me. You don't have to stay here. So he took us there, and also the Red Cross had given us also cards to send home to say that we survived. So I got a card, I sent it to the business what we used to have, and I figured somebody from the people are there. And I told them, I'm back, I don't know if anybody, I know nobody from my family is alive, but maybe, I was thinking, maybe my fiancé made it, you know. I don't know, I know his brother and sister were gone, I don't know how strong he was, but I wanted to go home. I got a card back after a couple of days, and they said, oh, we're so happy you're alive and you made it, and this one is back from hiding, this one is back from Switzerland, my family. My aunt got back into the house next to the business. Business was back in business. And that was, why don't you come home? Well, I wanted to go home. They said there is a truck going to Amsterdam. I said, I don't want to go to Amsterdam, I want to go to Hilversum. Well, that and that way they went, and they passed by Soestdijk in Holland, where the Queen used to live. And on the corner of their garden, there's a street going to Hilversum. I said, well, take me, I'm going. And I was just amazed. Anyway, I went. I had a camp jacket on with red stripes, very little hair, skin and bones, because I had lost that much weight. But I went on the truck, they let me up, and I went walking, and a man on a bicycle passed. Now, they had no rubber. Everything was taken away from the people. So they had to improvise with the bicycle and made little blocks of wood for tires. And when the man came to me, as I was walking away, and he looked at me, he says, I take you any place. We talked, he knew where I was from. And he says, I don't know if you're so comfortable. It looks like you lost a lot of weight to go on the back of a bicycle. And I don't know if I did, but he brought me, I bring you to wherever you want to go. So we went to Hilversum, and as I came by the door, right next to the business, my aunt was in that house, and she had come back from hiding with her son. And I don't remember what happened, but they all came out and they said, oh my God, you're back, and oh, we have to fatten you up, and blah, blah, blah. And I walked inside and I looked around. I saw this one back from Switzerland and that one back from hiding. Lots of my cousins and lots of, and whatever. And I looked around, of course, because when they sent me the card back, they also said an Ellis back. And then when I looked around, I said, you said Ellis back, so where is he? Well, he moved in with my cousin in the next town, and they sent some of the workers on the bike to go and get him, and I was waiting outside for him, of course. Now, he was liberated before me, and he was sent to Paris. So he was already liberated a couple of weeks or I don't know. But there he came on the bike, and he saw me standing there, and he threw the bag down, came to me, and he looked so good. And I was skin and bones, and there he was fattened up already. And he looked so good. And he came to me and crying, of course, holding on to each other. He says, we have to try to make a life for ourselves. Just the three of us. Who did he mean? The three of us was himself and me and little Louis. He had gotten little Louis back from the people who saved him.
Let me take over. Let me take over.
Okay, you want to do that.
Anyway, this is a picture of Al and Betty and me, and when we came together. And this is when my life started. You know, I was 5 years old up to that time. You know, I had my parents for a year and a little over a year. I had my war family for 2.5 to 3 years, and then I had Betty and Al as my mom and dad for the next 2 years, 3 years actually. And we lived as a family, and like, you know, Aunt Betty said, that there was food. You know, I mean, you can imagine me as a baby being raised by this family. They did everything to survive, but I became very, very suspicious of food because everything I put in my mouth tasted terrible. You know, it was gristly, it was fat, and it took me a long time to understand food and get back into eating and so forth, and I was very suspicious of that. But you know, Aunt Betty is a wonderful cook when she got her health back, and we had matzah and sugar and brown sugar and cheese, and it was just a wonderful way to live. We went on vacations. I called them Mom and Dad, and it was great. But my Uncle Al, he had lost everybody. There was nobody left in his family. He was the only survivor. At least Aunt Betty and us, we had a couple of cousins here and there and some aunts and uncles, but Hoppy just lost everybody. And in the meantime, like all these clothes and everything, they came from Elsie and Ike. Elsie being my mom's sister who was already in America. And so they would send us, you know, clothes and food. That's how we got food. And they kept saying, come to America. Come, there's nothing for you there. Come to America.
What they sent us was spam and spaghetti.
It was
And listen, Holland was still, after we came back, it was still, everybody was still on coupon. There wasn't that much food. So we were very lucky to have the spam. And she sent him clothes too. Very cute clothes he got from America after he came back.
And this is a picture of Elsie and Ike, who we here. And also, Elsie, my mom's sister, she had a son in the United States in 1940 after she married, Alan, who became my brother.
That was in my garden.
And Alan was born June 21st, 1940. I was born June 21st, 1941. Both sisters had a boy 1 year apart exactly, 2 worlds apart. Elsie in Holland, in America, and my mom in Holland. So that was quite a coincidence. Anyway, Hoppy finally said that he'd had enough. He couldn't handle Holland anymore. Let's go to America and live with Elsie and Ike. And so,
give me 5 years, he said. I promise, if we didn't make it in America in 5 years, we'll go back.
So in the beginning of 1948, we got into a big ship, went to New York.
Which broke down in the middle of the ocean.
And that's where I saw my
Here we
first.
survived and we could have drowned. But we didn't. We
No, we
came
didn't.
to
That's where I saw my first cowboy picture. Was
came to Hoboken. And there was Ike waiting, Elsie's husband, for us.
picked us up, met us in New York, and took us to a great dinner, which we didn't appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I did. You know, I eat everything anyway. But he took us to the deli, famous deli in New York, and he fed us. He fed us turkey with cranberry sauce and cheesecake for dessert. And I eat everything. And I don't know, but Al was kind of fussy.
I was still.
Chicken with jam. He says, but he ate it also.
And I was still suspicious of food, so I'm not sure what I ate, but I was happy to be there. Anyway, Elsie and Ike lived in Atlanta, Georgia, so we all got on the four of us, Betty, Al, and myself, and Ike on the train.
It's a dog.
My friends, we used to come together after the war. They had husbands, whatever, the 7 girls, the 6 girls. Nobody had any children. No children at all because of the sterilization. But I was going to America and I told Al, we have to be careful. He says, what do you mean? Look at all the girls. Nobody has children. I said, we're going to America. I don't want to take a chance. We have to be very careful. We have to be protected. And then finally we came to Atlanta, Georgia, and he kept begging and begging. I said, what's the matter? You know, you got what you get, but we have to be careful. But one day I gave in, and lo and behold, I became pregnant. Such a surprise.
So after Atlanta, Georgia, we were in Atlanta, Georgia for about 9 months. Then Ike took us to Memphis, Tennessee for a very short period of time, not quite sure why. And so this was in 1949. And Ike had a 1936 Buick limousine. So it was Betty and Al, Elsie and Ike, Alan and myself.
And the doggy.
Our dog that we brought, my dog we brought from Holland, and all our belongings, we all fitted into this one car. If you ever see the opening of the Beverly Hillbillies, it was a little bit like that. We were a little bit more sophisticated, but not too much. And we came across country in that car, all 6 of us.
Van Horn, Texas.
And we got stuck in Van Horn, Texas, when 90 miles out of Dallas, and they had us sent away for parts. But then we finally made it to California and Los Angeles. And like first thing he wanted to do, he said, "You got to go see the Pacific Ocean." So we drove down Wilshire Boulevard and saw the Pacific Ocean, and then of course we had to go find some place to live, and came back up Wilshire Boulevard, and at 17th and Wilshire, yes, 17th,
25th.
no, 17th, and Wilshire, and there was a motel called the Red Apple Motel, and that's where the 2 families stayed and lived together for about 4 months when the men went out and got jobs and started to establish themselves. And after about 4 months, the 2 families decided to go live on their own. So Betty and Al. Betty had, by the way, when we came to L.A., 2 weeks after we arrived to L.A., Jerry was born. And so in May of this coming May will be our 70th year here in Los Angeles. And so Betty and Al went to live downtown on 3rd Street by Lucas, right?
First we came, and they gave us Ike. He had a friend who has a lot of property, and then when he came to visit us by Elsie and Ike, for too many people, with the new baby. I had a baby already, and he says, "I have an apartment for you on 3rd and Lucas, downtown Los Angeles, a 1-room place." And after a while, he gave us a bigger place on Hollywood and Vine. We went to Hollywood and Vine. We had a 1-bedroom apartment.
It was by Melrose and Vine. It's close to Hollywood.
Well, but it was right there.
Anyway, so when they decided to split up, they decided that I would go live with Elsie and Ike because they had a son my age, and it would be easier for me to transition into America at that time. When I came to America, all I knew was yes and no, and me too. Me too was when, if my brother had it, I wanted it. And they put me back a year, back into kindergarten, and that's how I learned English. I learned English through the schools and through the kids. And it was a little confusing at first. I mean, I was living with my aunt and uncle, calling them aunt and uncle, and calling on the phone and visiting them every weekend, calling them my mom and dad. And so it was, but it all worked out because I had nothing but love and people taking care of me my whole life. And the first 8 years of my life, I had 4 sets of parents. I had my real parents. I had my war family, I had Betty and Al, and then I had Elsie and Ike. So I'm a very fortunate person. You know, I've been through a lot, nowhere near what Aunt Betty been through, but my parents saved me, and many parents in between saved me, and here I am today speaking with my aunt for the first time in front of you, and I feel blessed and fortunate to be here.
Now, he has the LC dress manufacturing business. He was in the garment industry, and he was a good craftsman, but he was a lousy businessman. So he lost the business. And there we were in Atlanta, Georgia. But he was known, he got right away a place in Memphis, Tennessee. He got another job. And we stayed, I had the baby in the meantime, and there we were in here, and then he had us come to Memphis. Now, Ike was born in Russia, never lost his accent. He came as a young man, they were sent to Israel, they come back and forth, but he had never, and he used to talk to us whatever he could, and talking to us and blah, 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 Simon, he always explaining everything, and he put Simon in there, and then he said California, Los Angeles. We said it was Simon, we are not going to stay here because we're going to California, we're going to Los Angeles, and that's what happened. What he meant was, we thought Simon, I don't know Simon, but what he meant was, you see what I mean. Every time he told something, you see what I mean. So anyway, we found that out later too. And he had the business, and my fiance, we were married at that time, but he was working with his father, he didn't have anything. And I took him downtown to Los Angeles all the time to teach him the trade. He had to learn what to do. And he'd never forget. He always, until the day he died, he used to make fun of us, because he used to make fun of Elle. Because he says, when they came to America, they didn't understand anything. And I asked him for a pair of shears. He came on with a chair. So that was, to learn the language. But we made it.
Yes, she was.
What did she say?
She said she didn't think you were sterilized.
I was sterilized, but I don't know what happened.
It didn't work.
I don't know.
Can I just say something? My mother was one of the 7 ladies. And my mother also was sterilized. Mother and my mother and her sister were in, I have Block 10 if anybody wants to see it, because I went to Auschwitz.
Oh, you went, yeah, I have it also.
Block 10 is still in existence there. And my mother and her sister were both married to brothers, and they had the same last name. My mother was the eldest, my aunt was the younger one. Towards the sterilization process, they were given injections, and my aunt was sterilized, did not have children. My aunt, I just listened to my aunt's video here, and she called me her daughter too. So you talk about family, I had 2 mothers. And Beppy, I know her as Beppy, right? And I know Uppy is Uppy. I'm honored to be here today. I had to come see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The family that took you in with the 17 others, do you know what happened to them when you were captured? Were they?
Well, you see what happened? Dirk was the guy who had us. He was a single man. But when we came to that little cabin, he moved out, picked up my in-laws, and put them with his girlfriend. So when I was caught, they were caught also. And his girlfriend was killed right away. And Dirk went in hiding And of course, we met him after the wars, but then he passed away also.
Let me say that they knew where I was, and I was in Hilversum, they were hidden in Hilversum, and so Oppie and Betty's dad, my grandfather, a couple of times during those 2 years went and visited me.
In retrospect, the family that took you in as a child with their other family, what was their motivation? I mean, it was such a fearful
They were
thing.
just righteous, good people,
Righteous.
and out after the war. But they were just good, kind people.
Who
And
wanted to save Jewish people?
Yes, and Mr. Long.
And there were a lot of them because they are survivors. This lady is a survivor also.
yeah, the Harry.
And he is Harry is a survivor too.
But I would like to also say that Mr. Lam and Mrs. Lam were very devout Catholics. And as devout Catholics, they fundamentally believed that what was happening to other human beings was so incorrect, and they could not abide by that.
You know, the other thing is that, you know, Aunt Betty is my mom, is my father's sister, and Elsie was my mom's sister. So they both had equal rights to me.
But we never fought about it.
Now, at 16, to become American citizens without going through all the rigmarole, I got adopted officially when I was 16, and so my name became Louis Corper Fogelman. And
Louis
then
C. Fogelman.
Louis Corper Fogelman.
Louis C. Fogelman.
Is it hard for you to watch movies about that event?
Yes. Cry a lot. But you never forget. Every single night I say goodbye to all my family. Which is, I call them by name, and I want to remember my aunt who was in the camp, you know. And you relive it. And then what do you think how I relive it now?
You know,
Speaking to you guys, you relive the whole thing again.
I don't know if it's different, but we always talked about it. We didn't hide the fact that we were Holocaust survivors, that we were in the camp, that we lost this family and so forth. And that kind of helped us, I think. You know,
I
because
think in one way,
What?
because I know some people who never talked about it. They didn't want to talk, they didn't want anybody to know. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for being patient. Okay.
That's why we're here, so we keep, you know, more and more people know that at least there's a chance that it won't happen again, or it won't happen as badly. Right. I'm always.
That's so nice, thank you so much.
Happen again, or it won't happen as badly. Right. I'm always.
Yeah, I used to live in Manchester.